Mr. F was telling Professor about the houses and how they represent the country and what they thought was beautiful about it. Mr. House was petite train in a little shop in Versailles. After their discussion, Mr. F and Professor meet Mr. M and head over down to his house into the cellar for Mr. F to show Professor some of the inventions, which includes a self-making bed, floor-rising tables, moving chairs, and more. But before he continues, he has to take an intermission because he's an old and sick man. Anyways, time passes, the old man is speaking again. This is when Professor Sherman introduces the balloon merry-go-round. The merry-go-round was a part of an amusement park for the children in Krakatoa. The kids designed the ride themselves, and they designed more inventions for themselves, like a moving couch and beds that move up and down through skylights. During his intermission, the mayor and chief surgeon bug Professor, trying to make him comfortable, but instead it seems to make Professor annoyed. After the intermission, Professor Sherman goes back to telling the story. Mr. F and Sherman are talking about the children's education in the merry-go-round, so they went to go check it out. Once they get to the balloon, Mr. F and Professor asked if he wanted to take a ride. Professor said yes, and they were soon surrounded by children. Those children started setting up the balloon, and once they were done, everyone except the bee kids were on the boat because it was a bee day, and they had to help their parents. During the ride, everything was fun until they were hovering over Volcanic Mountain like it was nothing. But once they were directly over the mountain, the balloon started tossing and turning violently. But they were a little concerned about the mountains, so they headed down back to the land by landing in the ocean and sailing back home. Mr. F and Professor Sherman went for a swim. After Professor asked some questions about the island and how they would escape if there was an emergency, so Mr. F showed him.
Why? I asked Mr. F, do you people live here on top of this dormant volcano with a handful of diamonds? You can live a life of lavish ease and comfort in any other country.
Whilst eating dinner at the D family's restaurant, Professor waited for the D family to sit down so he could start talking. Once they sat down, of course, he went on to talk about San Francisco, and Professor says the response to it was amazing and most gratifying. I mentioned a new name, at least one face would light up. After 3 hours of talking, Professor Sherman notices the island was shaking more violently than usual. After he told the other people, some people were alarmed, most people weren't, but a crack opened up, and Mr. M told all the children and women to get on the platform while the men start to blow up the balloons, and the small town just goes into lockdown and starts getting ready to leave. For some reason, Professor risked his life for some little diamonds. After getting into the air, they just saw their home vanish before their eyes. Mr. F makes a plan that all the families jump off the platform with parachutes, of course, at the first sight of land, and one family has to stay with Professor Sherman to land the platform at the first body of water they see. Of course, it was the F family. So everyone goes along with the plan, and the story almost ends. Then Professor's story ends, not the actual book. Then a lady in the audience asks Professor what he's gonna do after all this, and Professor says he's gonna sell the diamonds that he was given and go around the earth in the balloon again, despite what happened. Isn't that crazy? I think the theme of the story is not all your ideas are good, and not everything good lasts forever.